Sometimes the most dangerous assumption is thinking you know who holds the real power in a room. At Naval Special Warfare Command, Lieutenant Sarah Chen learned this lesson the hard way when she dismissed a quiet young man carrying coffee and files as just another aide. What she didn't know was that Petty Officer Marcus Rodriguez had earned something that couldn't be bought, inherited, or fast-tracked through the ranks: the absolute respect of America's deadliest warriors. In a world where rank typically determines respect, Marcus had achieved something extraordinary. Navy SEALs, men who feared nothing and respected few, would stop their conversations when he walked by. Hardened operators who had faced death in countless missions would seek his advice before making critical decisions. And, when the base commander himself snapped to attention and saluted first, everyone realized they had been looking at leadership through the wrong lens entirely. This is the story of how one man's quiet excellence spoke louder than any uniform insignia ever could, and how those who underestimated him discovered that true authority isn't always worn on the sleeve. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters as Lieutenant Sarah Chen stepped out of her government sedan. Fresh from the Naval Academy and newly assigned to NSWC as a liaison officer, she carried herself with the confident bearing of someone who had graduated in the top 5% of her class. Her crisp uniform bore the shine of someone who had never seen combat, and her stride held the certainty of someone who believed rank meant everything in the military hierarchy. Sarah's assignment was straightforward: coordinate between various SEAL teams and higher command, ensuring smooth communication and resource allocation. It was her first real taste of the special operations world, and she intended to make an impression. Her father, Admiral James Chen, had made it clear that excellence was expected, not optional. The Chen family had a tradition of distinguished naval service spanning 3 generations, and Sarah was determined to continue that legacy. As she approached the main building, Sarah noticed a young man in Navy utilities walking toward the entrance, carrying a stack of files and 2 cups of coffee. He appeared to be in his mid-20s, with short dark hair and a quiet demeanor. His uniform was immaculate but bore no visible rank insignia that she could immediately identify in the morning light. The way he carried himself suggested someone comfortable but unassuming, exactly what she expected from support personnel. "Excuse me," Sarah called out, her voice carrying the authority she had been taught to project. "I need these delivered to Commander Jackson's office immediately." She pulled a manila envelope from her briefcase, containing her transfer orders and initial reports. The young man stopped and turned toward her. His dark eyes held an alertness that seemed almost out of place for what she assumed was an administrative aide. "I'll make sure it gets there, ma'am," he said simply, shifting the files to one arm to accept her envelope. "Good. And, next time, you should offer to help with bags when you see an officer arriving," Sarah added, gesturing to her briefcase and computer bag. "It's common courtesy." Something flickered in the man's expression, not anger or resentment, but something closer to mild surprise. "Of course, ma'am. I'll keep that in mind." As Sarah walked toward the building entrance, she felt satisfied with the interaction. Setting expectations early was crucial for maintaining proper military bearing. Her academy instructors had drilled into her that respect for rank was the foundation of military order, and she intended to uphold those standards from day one. The interior of the NSWC headquarters buzzed with controlled activity. Personnel moved with purpose through hallways lined with photographs of SEAL teams, medals of honor, and historical mission commemorations. Sarah reported to the administration office to complete her check-in process, presenting her orders to a chief petty officer who reviewed them with practiced efficiency. "Welcome to NSWC, Lieutenant," the chief said, stamping her paperwork. "Commander Jackson will see you at 0900. His office is on the 2nd floor, room 201. His aide will probably meet you there to brief you on current operations." Sarah thanked the chief and made her way upstairs, taking in the atmosphere of the command. This was where America's most elite warriors planned and executed their missions. The responsibility of her position began to sink in as she passed offices where she could see personnel studying maps, reviewing intelligence reports, and coordinating complex operations. Room 201 stood at the end of a hallway marked with security warnings and access restrictions. Sarah knocked firmly and heard a gruff voice call for her to enter. Commander Jackson sat behind a large desk covered with maps, reports, and communication equipment. He was a man in his late 40s with graying hair and the weathered appearance of someone who had spent decades in special operations. His eyes held the sharp intelligence of a combat veteran who had seen everything and trusted few. "Lieutenant Chen reporting for duty, sir," Sarah announced, coming to attention and saluting. Commander Jackson returned the salute and gestured for her to take a seat. At ease, Lieutenant. I've reviewed your file. Impressive academic record, strong recommendations from your instructors. Your father speaks highly of your potential. Thank you, sir. I'm ready to contribute to the mission. Good. Let me be direct with you, Chen. This isn't the surface fleet, and it's not the Pentagon. SEALs operate differently. We care less about where you went to school and more about whether you can get the job done under pressure. Your role here will be to facilitate communication between my teams and higher command, ensure they have what they need, and stay out of their way when they're preparing for operations. Sarah nodded, though she felt a slight sting at the commander's blunt assessment. I understand, sir. I've studied special operations doctrine extensively. Studying and living it are different things, Jackson replied. You'll be working closely with my operations aide. He knows every SEAL in this command, understands their capabilities, and has their trust. Learn from him, and you'll do fine. Ignore his advice, and you'll find yourself reassigned very quickly. Before Sarah could respond, there was a knock at the door. Commander Jackson called for the person to enter, and Sarah turned to see the same young man she had encountered outside, the one she had assumed was a coffee-carrying aide. He entered with a professional bearing that seemed more pronounced now, carrying a tablet and a folder of documents. Rodriguez, perfect timing, Commander Jackson said. Lieutenant Chen, meet Petty Officer First Class Marcus Rodriguez, my operations aide. Rodriguez, this is Lieutenant Chen, your new liaison officer. Sarah felt a flush of embarrassment as she realized her mistake. Petty Officer First Class was an E6 rank, a senior enlisted position that commanded respect throughout the Navy. She had dismissed a man who likely had years of experience and significant responsibilities. Marcus showed no sign of recognition from their earlier encounter, maintaining a professional demeanor as he acknowledged the introduction. Pleasure to meet you, Lieutenant, Marcus said, his voice neutral and respectful. Likewise, Petty Officer Rodriguez, Sarah replied, hoping her earlier condescending tone wasn't apparent to Commander Jackson. Rodriguez here has been with SEAL teams for 8 years, Commander Jackson continued. He's done tours in Afghanistan, Iraq, and several places that don't officially exist on any maps. He knows this command better than anyone, and the teams respect him. Listen to what he tells you. Marcus placed the folder on Jackson's desk. Sir, I have the updated operational status reports from Teams 3, 5, and 8. Team 3 is requesting additional communications equipment for their upcoming deployment. Team 5 needs approval for extended training in the desert facility. Team 8 is ready for mission brief at your convenience. Commander Jackson nodded, reviewing the documents. What's your assessment of Team 3's equipment request? Justified, sir. Their last mission revealed some communication gaps that could have compromised the operation. The equipment they're requesting would eliminate those vulnerabilities. Approved. Set up the procurement. What about Team 5's training request? I recommend approval with modifications. They want 4 weeks, but, based on their skill assessments, 2 weeks of intensive training would achieve the same results and leave them available for the priority mission developing in the Pacific. Sarah listened to the exchange with growing respect for Marcus's knowledge and analytical capabilities. His responses were precise, informed, and demonstrated deep understanding of both operational requirements and strategic priorities. This wasn't a simple aide delivering messages, this was a senior operator providing critical input on mission-essential decisions. Lieutenant Chen, Commander Jackson said, turning to her. Rodriguez will brief you on current operations and introduce you to the team leaders. Pay attention to how he communicates with them. SEALs don't suffer fools gladly, but they respect competence and honesty. As they left Commander Jackson's office, Sarah walked alongside Marcus through the corridors. She wanted to apologize for her earlier behavior but wasn't sure how to address it without making the situation worse. Marcus seemed focused on their destination, moving with the purposeful stride of someone who knew exactly where they were going and why. They entered a large operations center where multiple screens displayed maps, satellite imagery, and communication feeds. Several men in utilities worked at computer stations, updating databases and monitoring various information streams. These weren't typical sailors, their bearing and alertness marked them as special operations personnel. Gentlemen, Marcus announced, I'd like you to meet Lieutenant Chen, our new liaison officer. A tall man with a thick beard turned from his workstation. His uniform bore the insignia of a chief petty officer, and his arms showed the muscular definition of someone who maintained peak physical condition. "Welcome to the circus, Lieutenant. I'm Chief Morrison, Team 3 Operations Specialist." "Thank you, Chief. I look forward to working with your team." "Rodriguez here will take good care of you," Morrison said, nodding toward Marcus. "He knows more about our capabilities and limitations than some of our own officers. When he makes a recommendation, we listen." Sarah noticed the respect in Morrison's voice when he spoke about Marcus. This wasn't the typical deference shown to rank, this was the genuine respect earned through competence and proven reliability. She began to understand that she had walked into a world where traditional hierarchies were overshadowed by demonstrated expertise. Marcus led her to another section where two men were studying satellite photographs spread across a large table. Both wore the casual confidence of experienced operators, their attention completely focused on the images before them. "Davis, Thompson," Marcus called. "I want you to meet Lieutenant Chen." The two men looked up, offering polite nods and handshakes. Their grip was firm, their eye contact direct, the handshake of men accustomed to making quick assessments of people they meet. "Lieutenant Chen will be coordinating our requests through higher command," Marcus explained. "She'll need to understand our operational tempo and resource requirements." "Good to meet you, Lieutenant," Davis said. "Hope you're ready for a fast pace. Things move quickly around here, and we don't always have time for lengthy explanations." "I'm prepared for whatever the mission requires," Sarah replied. Thompson smiled. "That's what we like to hear. Rodriguez will get you up to speed. He's got a gift for translating between our world and the Pentagon's world." As they continued the tour, Sarah noticed how Marcus interacted with each person they met. He knew their names, their specialties, and, often, their current projects. More importantly, they clearly valued his opinion and sought his input on various issues. This wasn't the behavior she expected toward a typical aide, this was how people treated a trusted advisor. They visited the intelligence section, where Marcus introduced her to analysts who were preparing briefings for upcoming missions. The conversation revealed that Marcus had contributed to several intelligence assessments, providing operational insights that helped shape mission planning. In the training coordination office, Sarah met the personnel responsible for maintaining SEAL readiness and qualification standards. Again, Marcus was clearly known and respected, with training coordinators asking his opinion on scheduling conflicts and resource allocation. "How do you know so much about every aspect of operations?" Sarah asked as they walked between sections. 8 years of paying attention," Marcus replied simply. "When you work with SEALs, you learn that understanding the complete picture makes everyone more effective. They taught me that excellence in small things leads to excellence in big things." They entered the communications center, where multiple radio operators maintained contact with deployed teams around the world. The atmosphere was more intense here, with operators speaking in coded language and monitoring various frequency ranges. Marcus checked on several ongoing communications, asking specific questions about signal strength and message traffic. "Rodriguez," called out a petty officer's second class from across the room. "I've got Team 7 requesting priority communication with command. They're reporting mission complete and requesting extraction coordination." Marcus moved quickly to the operator's station, putting on a headset and taking control of the communication. "Team 7, this is base operations, Rodriguez speaking. Confirm your status and location for extraction coordination." Sarah watched as Marcus efficiently coordinated the communication, working with the radio operator to establish clear contact with the deployed team. His questions were precise and his responses immediate. This was clearly not his first time managing such coordination. "Team 7 confirms successful mission completion," Marcus reported to the room. "I'll coordinate with the extraction team and update Commander Jackson immediately." The other operators nodded, returning to their duties with the confidence that the situation was being handled competently. Sarah realized she was witnessing something significant. Marcus wasn't just delivering messages or carrying files. He was actively managing critical operations and making decisions that affected SEAL teams in the field. "I need to brief the commander immediately," Marcus told Sarah. "Would you like to observe the briefing process?" "Yes, absolutely." They returned to Commander Jackson's office, where Marcus knocked and received immediate permission to enter. Jackson looked up expectantly, recognizing the urgency in Marcus's demeanor. Sir, Team 7 reports mission complete. All personnel accounted for, objectives achieved. They're requesting extraction from grid 247 to 519 within the next 6 hours due to increased enemy activity in the area. Commander Jackson pulled up a map on his computer, studying the coordinates Marcus had provided. What's the extraction team's current status? Extraction Team Charlie is completing fuel and maintenance checks now. They can launch within 90 minutes. I recommend we also alert the backup extraction team in case weather or enemy activity complicates the primary extraction. Agreed. Make it happen, Rodriguez. And, good work on the communication coordination. As they left the commander's office, Sarah felt a new understanding of Marcus's role beginning to form. This wasn't administrative support, this was operational leadership. The quiet confidence she had initially mistaken for subservience was actually the calm competence of someone who had proven himself under pressure repeatedly. The remainder of the morning brought a steady stream of situations requiring Marcus's attention. Equipment requisitions that needed his technical assessment, training schedules that required his coordination expertise, and personnel issues that needed his diplomatic handling. In each case, Sarah observed how other personnel sought his input and deferred to his judgment. During lunch, they sat in the command dining facility, where Sarah noticed how various personnel stopped by their table to speak with Marcus. Chiefs, petty officers, and even some junior officers clearly valued his opinion on matters ranging from operational planning to career advice. "I owe you an apology," Sarah finally said as they finished eating. "This morning, outside the building, I made assumptions about your role here. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." Marcus looked at her thoughtfully. "No apology necessary, Lieutenant. First impressions can be deceiving. What matters is how we work together going forward. How did you end up in this position? Commander Jackson said you've been with SEAL teams for 8 years. Started as a regular Navy communications specialist, Marcus explained. Did a deployment with a SEAL team as their communications support. They taught me that being effective means understanding the complete mission, not just your small part of it. I started studying everything operations, intelligence, logistics, personnel management. The more I learned, the more useful I became to the teams. And they began to trust your judgment? Trust is earned through consistency. When SEALs know they can count on you to handle details correctly every time, they start asking for your opinion on bigger issues. When your opinions prove valuable, they include you in more important discussions. Eventually, you become someone they can't operate effectively without. Sarah began to understand that Marcus had achieved something remarkable. He had earned the respect of America's most elite warriors through demonstrated competence rather than rank or position. In a culture where excellence was the only currency that mattered, he had proven his value repeatedly until his opinion carried weight far beyond his official position. The afternoon brought Sarah's first real test when Commander Jackson called her into a meeting with visiting Pentagon officials who were reviewing SEAL operational capabilities. Her role was to provide liaison support and ensure the visitors understood current operational status. "Lieutenant Chen will coordinate any information requests," Jackson announced to the visiting officials. "She's supported by Petty Officer Rodriguez, who knows our operational status better than anyone." The Pentagon officials, led by a Navy captain and an Army colonel, began asking detailed questions about team readiness, deployment capabilities, and resource requirements. Sarah quickly realized that many of their questions required the kind of detailed operational knowledge that Marcus possessed. "What's the average deployment cycle for your teams?" the captain asked. Sarah looked to Marcus, who stepped forward smoothly. "Sir, our teams typically deploy for 4 to 6 months, with a 12-month preparation cycle between deployments. However, we maintain rapid response capabilities that allow us to deploy specially configured teams within 48 hours if required." "How do you maintain readiness during the preparation cycle?" the colonel inquired. Again, Marcus provided the detailed answer. "Continuous training in specialized skills, regular joint exercises with other special operations units, and ongoing equipment and tactical development programs. Each team spends approximately 60% of their preparation cycle in various training environments." The questions continued for over an hour, with Marcus providing precise, informed responses to every inquiry. Sarah began to understand that her role was not to know everything, but to facilitate access to the expertise that Marcus represented. After the visitors departed, Commander Jackson called Sarah into his office for a private discussion. "How did that go from your perspective, Lieutenant?" I learned that I have a lot to learn, sir. Petty Officer Rodriguez's knowledge and expertise are impressive. Rodriguez represents 8 years of institutional knowledge and hard-earned experience. He's worked with every SEAL team in this command, understands their capabilities intimately, and has their complete trust. Your job is to bridge between his operational knowledge and the administrative requirements that higher command needs. I understand, sir. Do you? Because I need to be clear about something. Rodriguez could probably do your job better than you can, but he doesn't have a commission. The Navy needs officers who can interface with senior leadership and handle the political aspects of special operations. But those officers need to recognize and leverage the expertise of senior enlisted personnel like Rodriguez. Sarah nodded, beginning to understand the complexity of her position. She wasn't brought here because she knew more than Marcus, she was brought here because she could translate between his operational expertise and the administrative demands of higher leadership. As the day ended, Sarah reflected on everything she had observed. Her assumptions about military hierarchy had been challenged in fundamental ways. Marcus didn't command respect because of his rank, he commanded respect because he had proven himself indispensable to the mission. Walking to her quarters that evening, Sarah encountered several SEAL team members heading to the base gym. She recognized Chief Morrison among them and nodded a greeting. "How was your first day, Lieutenant?" Morrison asked. "Educational. I'm beginning to understand how much I need to learn." "Rodriguez is a good teacher," Morrison replied. "Listen to him, and you'll do fine. Ignore him, and you'll find yourself replaced quickly." "What makes him so effective?" Morrison paused, considering his response. "Most people see their job as completing assigned tasks. Rodriguez sees his job as making sure the mission succeeds. He'll do whatever it takes, learn whatever he needs to know, and work with whoever necessary to ensure SEAL teams have what they need to accomplish their objectives. That's rare." As Sarah continued to her quarters, she realized that her first day had fundamentally changed her understanding of leadership and respect in the military. She had expected to find a world where rank determined authority and deference. Instead, she had discovered a place where competence, reliability, and dedication created influence that transcended traditional hierarchies. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she would spend time studying the files Marcus had provided: operational reports, team assessments, and mission summaries that would help her understand the world she had entered. She was beginning to realize that success in this environment would require humility, dedication to continuous learning, and recognition that true leadership could emerge from unexpected places. The lesson of her first day was clear: in the world of special operations, respect was earned through excellence, not inherited through rank. Marcus Rodriguez had spent 8 years earning that respect, one mission and one decision at a time. Now Sarah would begin her own journey toward earning the trust of America's most elite warriors, starting with learning to recognize expertise wherever she found it. Sarah's second week at Naval Special Warfare Command brought new challenges that would test everything she thought she understood about military protocol. The morning started like any other, with her arriving early to review overnight communications and prepare briefing materials for Commander Jackson. She had developed a routine of checking with Marcus first thing each morning to understand the operational picture and any developing situations. Marcus was already at his desk when she arrived, working through a stack of intelligence reports and coordination messages. His workspace was organized with military precision, communications equipment arranged for maximum efficiency, reference materials within easy reach, and multiple computer screens displaying real-time operational status across all SEAL teams under the command. "Good morning, Lieutenant," Marcus said without looking up from his work. "We've got several situations developing that will require coordination with higher command today." Sarah poured herself coffee from the office pot and settled at her adjacent desk. Over the past week, she had learned to value these morning briefings with Marcus. His assessment of priorities and potential complications had proven consistently accurate, and his recommendations had helped her avoid several bureaucratic pitfalls. "What's the situation?" she asked, pulling out her notebook to capture key details. "Team 6 is requesting emergency resupply for an extended mission. Their original timeline was compromised by intelligence developments, and they need additional equipment and supplies to maintain their position. Team 2 is reporting communication difficulties from their training location. We may need to authorize alternative communication methods. And we received a priority message from Admiral Harrison's office requesting a comprehensive readiness assessment for all teams." Sarah felt a familiar tightness in her stomach. Admiral Harrison was the theater commander, and his requests typically meant increased scrutiny from Washington. Any mistakes in responding to his office could affect not just her career, but the command's relationship with senior leadership. "What's your recommendation for sequence of priorities?" Sarah asked. "Teams say excess resupply is critical and time-sensitive. I've already initiated preliminary coordination with logistics, but we'll need your authorization for expedited procurement. Team 2's communication issue is probably technical rather than operational. I can work with the communication section to resolve it. The readiness assessment will require several days of comprehensive data compilation." Before Sarah could respond, Chief Morrison entered their office area carrying a folder marked with priority classifications. His expression was more serious than usual, suggesting the information he carried was significant. "Rodriguez, I need to brief you and the lieutenant on a developing situation," Morrison announced. "We just received word that Team 4 has encountered unexpected resistance during their mission. They're requesting immediate tactical support and possible reinforcement." Marcus immediately shifted into crisis management mode, his casual demeanor replaced by the focused intensity Sarah had learned to recognize during serious situations. He pulled up computerized maps and communication logs, quickly assessing the team's location and available support assets. "What's their current status?" Marcus asked, already pulling up satellite imagery of the team's operational area. "All personnel accounted for, but they're in a defensive position and requesting extraction within 12 hours. Enemy activity is heavier than intelligence predicted, and their primary mission objective may no longer be achievable." Sarah watched as Marcus analyzed the situation, cross-referencing the team's location with available extraction assets, weather conditions, and friendly forces in the area. His assessment was rapid but thorough, considering multiple variables that would affect any rescue operation. "Lieutenant," Marcus said, turning to Sarah, "I need you to contact Admiral Harrison's office immediately and request priority support for extraction operations. Chief Morrison, get me direct communication with Team 4's senior enlisted advisor. I need to understand their tactical situation before we commit extraction assets." The next several hours transformed their office into a crisis management center. Multiple phone lines were active simultaneously as Marcus coordinated between Team 4, extraction assets, intelligence analysts, and higher command. Sarah found herself managing communications with Pentagon officials who needed constant updates on the situation. What impressed Sarah most was how Marcus managed the complex coordination requirements. He maintained direct communication with the endangered SEAL team while simultaneously working with logistics personnel to arrange extraction support, intelligence analysts to assess enemy capabilities, and medical personnel to prepare for potential casualties. "Team 4, this is base operations," Marcus spoke into his headset. "Extraction Team Alpha is airborne and approaching your position. Confirm your current tactical situation and any changes to enemy activity." Sarah listened as the SEAL team leader provided a tense update on their circumstances. Enemy forces had increased their presence in the area, and the team was effectively surrounded with limited ammunition and no clear route to the original extraction point. "Roger, Team 4. We're adjusting extraction to alternative Site Bravo. Confirm you have that location marked and can reach it within 2 hours." "Negative, base operations. Alternative Site Bravo is compromised. Enemy forces established a checkpoint there approximately 1 hour ago." Marcus quickly consulted his maps and satellite imagery, searching for alternative options. Sarah watched him analyze terrain features, enemy positions, and extraction team capabilities to identify a viable solution. "Team 4, stand by. We're identifying alternative site Charlie and coordinating with extraction assets for approach routes that avoid enemy positions." While Marcus managed tactical coordination, Sarah worked with Commander Jackson's office to ensure senior leadership was fully informed about the developing situation. The complexity of the operation required approval from multiple levels of command, and any delays could jeopardize the SEAL team's safety. "Lieutenant Chen," Commander Jackson called from his office, "I need you and Rodriguez in here immediately." They entered Jackson's office to find him in conference with several senior officers Sarah didn't recognize. Maps covered every available surface, and multiple communication devices provided real-time updates from various sources. "Gentlemen," Jackson announced, "Lieutenant Chen is our liaison officer, and Petty Officer Rodriguez is my operations specialist. Rodriguez has been coordinating the Team 4 situation." A Navy captain Sarah hadn't met before looked up from the maps. Captain Williams, Theater Operations Officer. What's your assessment of extraction feasibility, Petty Officer? Marcus stepped forward confidently, despite being the most junior person in the room. Sir, Team 4 is in a defensible position but, with limited time before enemy forces can coordinate a concentrated assault. We have extraction assets airborne, but the original extraction point is compromised. I've identified 3 alternative sites, but each requires different tactical approaches. Explain your options, Williams directed. Marcus indicated positions on the map with precise hand movements. Option 1 places the extraction site 7 kilometers from Team 4's current position. This requires them to move through potentially hostile territory but offers the safest approach for extraction aircraft. Option 2 uses a closer site but requires extraction assets to operate in a higher threat environment. Option 3 involves extraction directly from their current position but would require additional fire support assets. Sarah noticed how the senior officers listened intently to Marcus's assessment. There were no interruptions or challenges to his analysis. They clearly valued his tactical judgment despite his enlisted status. What's your recommendation? Captain Williams asked. Option 1, sir. Team 4 has the tactical skills to move 7 kilometers without detection, and it provides extraction assets with the safest operating environment. The additional time required is offset by reduced risk to both the SEAL team and extraction personnel. Agreed. Make it happen. Marcus immediately returned to his communication station and began coordinating the new extraction plan. Sarah watched him work with practiced efficiency, updating Team 4 on their movement requirements, coordinating with extraction aircraft on the new timeline, and arranging for additional intelligence support to monitor enemy movements along the team's route. Team 4, this is base operations. New extraction plan approved. You'll move to grid reference 425 to 789 beginning in 30 minutes. Extraction aircraft will arrive at that location in 4 hours. Intelligence assets are monitoring your route and will provide updates on enemy activity. The SEAL team acknowledged the new plan, and Marcus began the complex task of coordinating all supporting elements. Sarah realized she was observing something remarkable: a petty officer first class effectively managing an operation that involved multiple aircraft, intelligence assets, and senior military leaders. Rodriguez, Chief Morrison called from across the room, I'm getting reports of increased enemy communication activity in Team 4's operational area. They may be coordinating a search operation. Marcus immediately contacted the intelligence section to request expanded monitoring of enemy communications. Within minutes, he was receiving translated intercepts that confirmed enemy forces were indeed organizing a systematic search for the SEAL team. Team 4, this is base operations with priority intelligence update. Enemy forces are organizing search operations in your area. Recommend you begin movement to extraction site immediately rather than waiting for planned departure time. Base operations, Team 4. We copy intelligence update and are beginning movement now. Estimate 2 hours to reach extraction site. Marcus updated all coordination elements about the accelerated timeline, ensuring extraction aircraft would arrive when needed and that intelligence monitoring would track both the SEAL team's movement and enemy search activities. Sarah found herself largely observing rather than participating in the crisis management. Marcus's expertise and established relationships with various support elements made him far more effective at managing the tactical coordination than she could have been. Her role became ensuring that senior leadership remained informed and that administrative requirements were met. The next 2 hours tested everyone's nerves as reports came in about the SEAL team's movement through hostile territory and increasing enemy search activities. Marcus maintained constant communication with multiple elements while monitoring intelligence reports that tracked the developing situation. Base operations, Team 4. We're 1 kilometer from extraction site but observing enemy patrol activity near the area. Request intelligence update on enemy positions around the extraction site. Marcus immediately contacted intelligence analysts who provided detailed assessment of enemy positions based on real-time surveillance. The information revealed that enemy patrols were moving closer to the planned extraction site, threatening the operation's success. Team 4, intelligence confirms enemy patrol approximately 500 meters south of extraction site and moving in your direction. Recommend you hold current position while we assess alternative options. Sarah watched Marcus work rapidly through potential solutions. The original extraction site was becoming too dangerous, but changing locations again would require complex coordination with aircraft already en route to the original position. "Sir," Marcus called to Commander Jackson, "we need to adjust extraction location again. The enemy is too close to our planned site." Jackson immediately consulted with Captain Williams and the other senior officers present. "What are our options, Rodriguez?" "We can move extraction to a backup site approximately 2 kilometers east of the current position. This requires Team 4 to move additional distance but provide separation from enemy patrols. Alternatively, we can authorize fire support to suppress enemy activity around the current extraction site." "Risk assessment for each option?" "Moving to backup site adds 30 minutes to the timeline but avoids potential combat. Fire support eliminates enemy threat but reveals our location and intentions to any remaining enemy forces in the area." The senior officers conferred briefly before Captain Williams made the decision. "Move to backup site. Minimize combat engagement unless absolutely necessary." Marcus immediately implemented the new plan, updating Team 4 on the location change and coordinating with extraction aircraft for the revised approach. His ability to rapidly adjust complex coordination requirements impressed everyone present. "Team 4, this is base operations. Final extraction site change to grid reference 445 to 792. Extraction aircraft will adjust approach accordingly. Confirm you can reach new location within current timeline. Base operations, Team 4. We copy new extraction site and can reach location within timeline. Moving now." The final phase of the extraction operation required precise timing coordination between the SEAL team's arrival at the extraction site and the aircraft's approach. Marcus monitored both elements while maintaining awareness of enemy activity throughout the operational area. "Extraction aircraft, this is base operations. Team 4 is 5 minutes from extraction site. Confirm your approach timeline and any observations of enemy activity. Base operations, extraction 1. We're 3 minutes out from extraction site. No enemy activity observed along our approach route. Team 4's route appears clear based on our surveillance." Sarah felt the tension in the room increase as the operation reached its critical phase. Everything depended on precise execution during the next few minutes. Marcus remained calm and focused, continuing his coordination responsibilities despite the pressure. "Team 4, this is base operations. Extraction aircraft is 2 minutes out. Confirm you're in position and ready for pickup. Base operations, Team 4. We're in position at extraction site. Area is secure and ready for aircraft approach." The final moments of the extraction seemed to stretch endlessly as everyone waited for confirmation of successful pickup. Marcus maintained communication with both the SEAL team and extraction aircraft, ready to coordinate any last-minute adjustments if problems developed. "Base operations, extraction 1. Team 4 is aboard and secure. Departing extraction site now. Mission complete." The room erupted in quiet celebration as the successful extraction was confirmed. Sarah realized she had witnessed something extraordinary, a complex military operation coordinated primarily by a petty officer first class whose expertise and judgment were trusted implicitly by senior officers. "Outstanding work, Rodriguez," Captain Williams said as he prepared to depart. "That coordination was textbook perfect." Commander Jackson nodded agreement. "Rodriguez, prepare a comprehensive after-action report on the extraction operation. I want it on my desk by tomorrow morning." As the senior officers departed and the crisis atmosphere subsided, Sarah found herself alone with Marcus as he began documenting the operation and ensuring all communication logs were properly filed. "How do you do that?" she asked. "Do what?" "Manage that level of complexity while maintaining confidence and making critical decisions under pressure. Those were senior officers relying on your tactical judgment." Marcus paused in his documentation work. 8 years of experience and thousands of hours of training. When SEALs trust you with their lives, you learn to be worthy of that trust. Every decision has to be right because wrong decisions get people killed. Sarah began to understand that Marcus's authority didn't come from rank or position, it came from proven competence under the most demanding circumstances possible. SEAL teams trusted him because he had repeatedly demonstrated sound judgment when their lives depended on it. The senior officers treated you like an equal partner in decision-making. Because in this environment, competence matters more than rank. Those officers know I've coordinated dozens of similar operations successfully. They trust my assessment because I've proven it reliable. The remainder of the day was spent completing administrative requirements related to the extraction operation and preparing reports for higher command. Sarah observed how Marcus transformed from crisis coordinator back to administrative specialist, handling both roles with equal professionalism. As evening approached, she reflected on everything she had witnessed during the crisis. Marcus hadn't just managed an operation, he had led it, making critical decisions and coordinating complex assets while senior officers deferred to his expertise. Her understanding of military leadership continued to evolve as she realized that true authority could emerge from demonstrated excellence regardless of formal position. Marcus commanded respect because he had earned it through consistently superior performance when lives were at stake. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight Sarah would study the coordination procedures Marcus had employed during the extraction operation. She was beginning to understand that success in this environment required more than following established protocols, it required the kind of deep expertise that could only be gained through years of dedicated service and continuous learning. The day had provided another crucial lesson about leadership and respect in the special operations community. Excellence under pressure created influence that transcended traditional military hierarchies, and Marcus Rodriguez had become living proof that authority could be earned rather than simply assigned. 3 weeks into her assignment at Naval Special Warfare Command, Sarah Chen faced her most challenging test yet. The morning arrived with an unexpected message that would strain every relationship she had begun to build and force her to choose between competing loyalties that seemed impossible to reconcile. Admiral Harrison's Chief of Staff had requested an urgent meeting with all NSWC liaison personnel to discuss operational efficiency concerns that had reached Pentagon attention. The language was diplomatically vague, but Sarah recognized the warning signs of a high-level review that could result in significant changes to command structure and personnel assignments. Marcus arrived at the office earlier than usual, carrying multiple folders of documentation and wearing the focused expression Sarah had learned to associate with serious problems. His usual calm demeanor seemed strained, suggesting he was aware of developments that concerned him deeply. "Lieutenant," Marcus said as she entered, "I need to brief you on some information I received through unofficial channels. There's going to be a review of NSWC operations, and some people at higher levels are questioning the current command structure." Sarah felt a chill as she recognized the implications. Reviews of special operations commands typically resulted from either operational failures or political pressure to modify existing practices. Either scenario could threaten the careers of everyone involved. "What kind of concerns are being raised?" she asked, settling at her desk and preparing to take notes. "Apparently some Pentagon officials believe our command structure is too informal and that decision-making authority isn't properly aligned with rank structure. They're questioning whether enlisted personnel have too much influence over operational decisions." Sarah immediately understood the target of these concerns. Marcus's role as operational coordinator and trusted advisor to senior officers represented exactly the kind of informal authority structure that bureaucrats might find troubling. His influence on mission-critical decisions, despite his enlisted status, could appear inappropriate to officials who valued rigid hierarchy over proven competence. "Do we know who's driving these concerns?" Sarah asked. "Admiral Harrison's new Deputy Chief of Staff, Captain Morrison, different Morrison from our Chief Morrison, arrived from Pentagon assignment 3 months ago. He's been asking detailed questions about our operational procedures and command relationships. Word is he's preparing a comprehensive report on special operations command structures for senior Navy leadership." The implications were serious. Captain Morrison's review could recommend changes that would fundamentally alter how NSWC operated, potentially removing the informal expertise networks that made SEAL operations so effective. Marcus's position as operational coordinator could be eliminated entirely, or restructured in ways that would eliminate his influence over critical decisions. "What does Commander Jackson think about this?" Sarah asked. "He's concerned but limited in what he can do. If higher command questions our current structure, he'll have to justify every aspect of our operations or accept whatever changes they impose." Before they could discuss the situation further, Commander Jackson's voice called from his office, requesting both Sarah and Marcus to join him immediately. His tone suggested urgency and serious concern. They entered Jackson's office to find him studying a thick document that bore Pentagon classification markings. His expression was grim as he looked up from the paperwork, and Sarah noticed stress lines around his eyes that hadn't been there the previous week. "Close the door and sit down," Jackson directed. We need to discuss some developments that will affect everyone in this command. Sarah and Marcus took seats across from Jackson's desk, both recognizing the gravity of whatever information he was about to share. The commander's formal tone suggested official business rather than the collaborative discussions they typically enjoyed. I've received preliminary information about a command efficiency review being conducted by Admiral Harrison's office. The review will examine our operational procedures, decision-making processes, and command relationships. They're particularly interested in how we coordinate complex operations and who has authority to make critical decisions. Marcus maintained his professional composure, but Sarah noticed tension in his posture that suggested he understood the personal implications of such a review. His role as operational coordinator placed him directly in the crosshairs of any examination of command authority structures. What specific concerns are driving this review? Sarah asked. The Pentagon has questions about operational efficiency and whether our command structure properly reflects Navy regulations regarding authority and responsibility. They want to ensure that decision-making authority is appropriately aligned with rank and position. Sarah realized this was diplomatic language for a fundamental challenge to the system that had made Marcus so effective. His ability to coordinate operations and influence critical decisions was possible precisely because NSWC prioritized competence over rigid hierarchy. Timeline for this review? Marcus asked, his voice remaining steady despite the personal threat he faced. Review team arrives next Monday. They'll spend 2 weeks examining our operations, interviewing personnel, and observing our procedures. Their report will go directly to Admiral Harrison, who will make recommendations to Navy leadership. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. 2 weeks of intensive scrutiny would reveal every aspect of how NSWC operated, including Marcus's central role in coordinating operations that traditionally might be managed by commissioned officers. What do you need from us? Sarah asked. Complete transparency and professional excellence. They'll be watching everything we do, and any deviations from standard procedures will be noted. Rodriguez, they'll particularly want to understand your role and responsibilities. Be prepared to justify every aspect of your duties. Marcus nodded, understanding that he would bear the primary burden of defending the current system. His expertise and judgment would be measured against bureaucratic standards that might not recognize the value of earned authority over assigned authority. After leaving Commander Jackson's office, Sarah and Marcus returned to their workspace in thoughtful silence. The impending review created a tension that affected their normal collaborative relationship, as both realized that Sarah's commission status might require her to distance herself from Marcus's unofficial influence. I want you to know, Sarah finally said, that I'll provide honest assessment of how operations are conducted here, regardless of any pressure to conform to Pentagon expectations. Marcus appreciated her statement but recognized the difficult position she faced. As a commissioned officer with career aspirations, supporting an enlisted man's authority over operational decisions could damage her future prospects. I understand the situation, Lieutenant. You have to consider your own career and responsibilities to higher command. Don't compromise your position for my sake. This isn't about career considerations. It's about accurately representing how effective operations are actually conducted. What you do here works, and any honest assessment should reflect that reality. Their conversation was interrupted by Chief Morrison arriving with intelligence reports requiring immediate analysis. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Even while facing review of command structures, operational demands continued requiring exactly the kind of expertise that Marcus provided. Rodriguez, we've got intelligence indicating potential terrorist activity in 3 different theaters. I need your assessment of which SEAL teams are best positioned to respond if these situations develop into operational requirements. Marcus immediately shifted into analytical mode, reviewing intelligence summaries and cross-referencing them with current team locations, capabilities, and readiness status. His assessment was rapid but comprehensive, considering multiple variables that would affect any potential deployment. Team 3 is best positioned for the Middle East situation. They're currently deployed in the region and have specific experience with this type of target. Team 7 could handle the African situation, but they'd need 48-hour notice to deploy with appropriate equipment. The Pacific situation would require Team 5, but they're currently in training cycle and wouldn't be available for 10 days. Chief Morrison nodded, accepting Marcus's assessment without question. I'll brief Commander Jackson with your recommendations. If any of these situations develop, we'll need to move quickly. Sarah observed this interaction with particular attention, recognizing that it represented exactly the kind of informal authority that the Pentagon Review would scrutinize. Marcus had made strategic recommendations that could influence major operational decisions, despite having no official authority over team deployments. The following days brought increased awareness of every procedure and decision made within NSWC. Personnel began second-guessing informal practices that had proven effective, worried that review teams would interpret necessary flexibility as procedural violations. Marcus maintained his normal duties but, with heightened attention to documentation and formal procedures. Every recommendation he made was carefully recorded, and his interactions with senior personnel became more formal and structured. "This is ridiculous," Chief Morrison complained during a coordination meeting. "We're spending more time documenting why we do things effectively than actually doing them effectively." Sarah understood his frustration but recognized the political realities they faced. Pentagon reviews could result in fundamental changes to command structure, and defending current practices required proving they met bureaucratic standards as well as operational requirements. The weekend before the review team's arrival brought a crisis that would test everything Marcus had built during his 8 years at NSWC. Team 6 encountered unexpected complications during a classified mission, requiring immediate tactical support and coordination with multiple international partners. Marcus found himself managing the most complex operation of his career while knowing that every decision he made would be scrutinized by officials who might not understand the operational context that made his involvement necessary. Team 6 is requesting immediate intelligence support and coordination with British Special Forces for extraction assistance, Marcus reported to Commander Jackson. The situation has developed beyond their original mission parameters. Jackson faced an impossible choice. The mission required Marcus's expertise and established relationships with international partners, but authorizing his involvement would provide clear evidence of enlisted personnel making decisions that Pentagon officials might consider inappropriate. "What's your assessment of alternatives?" Jackson asked. "Sir, I have 8 years of established relationships with British counterparts and detailed knowledge of Team 6's capabilities and limitations. Any other coordinator would require several hours to establish the necessary communications and coordination protocols. In a time-sensitive situation, those hours could determine mission success or failure." Jackson made his decision based on operational necessity rather than political considerations. "Coordinate the operation, Rodriguez. Document everything thoroughly." The next 12 hours tested Marcus's abilities under the most intense pressure he had ever faced. Managing coordination with international partners while ensuring Team 6 received necessary support required every skill he had developed during his career. Sarah watched him work with growing admiration and deepening concern. His competence was undeniable, but the very excellence that made him invaluable also made him a target for officials who valued conformity over effectiveness. The operation concluded successfully with Team 6 safely extracted and mission objectives achieved. However, the detailed coordination logs would provide the review team with comprehensive documentation of Marcus's central role in managing a complex international operation. "Beautiful work, Rodriguez," Commander Jackson said as they completed post-mission reports. "That coordination was flawless." "Thank you, sir. I hope it's the right kind of evidence when the review team examines our procedures." Sarah realized that Marcus had essentially conducted his own evaluation, demonstrating his capabilities while creating a detailed record that Pentagon officials could either interpret as evidence of excellent operational procedures or inappropriate command structure. Sunday evening brought final preparations for the review team's arrival. Sarah spent hours reviewing documentation and preparing to answer questions about NSWC procedures and effectiveness. Her role as liaison officer placed her in a unique position to provide perspective on both operational reality and administrative requirements. Marcus worked late into the evening, organizing files and preparing documentation that would support the command's position during the review. His 8 years of institutional knowledge would be examined and potentially discarded based on bureaucratic judgments made by officials who had never managed similar operations. "Whatever happens this week," Sarah told him as they prepared to leave, "I want you to know that I've learned more about leadership and excellence from watching you work than from any academy course or official training program." "Thank you, Lieutenant. That means a lot coming from you." As they left NSWC headquarters, both understood that the following week could fundamentally change everything they had built together. The review would determine whether competence or conformity would define the future of Special Operations command structures. The irony was stark. Marcus's expertise had made NSWC more effective than ever, but that same expertise represented a challenge to traditional hierarchies that valued rank over proven ability. The review would essentially determine whether the Navy could accept that excellence sometimes emerged from unexpected places. Monday morning would bring Pentagon officials who would spend 2 weeks examining every aspect of how NSWC operated. Their conclusions could validate the current system or implement changes that would eliminate the informal expertise networks that made SEAL operations so successful. Sarah went to sleep that night knowing she would spend the next 2 weeks defending a system that had proven itself operationally but might fail bureaucratic review. Marcus faced the possibility that 8 years of earned authority could be eliminated by officials who had never managed similar responsibilities. The stage was set for a confrontation between operational excellence and administrative conformity, with the future of NSWC effectiveness hanging in the balance. Monday morning arrived with the Pentagon review team's black government vehicles pulling into Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters at precisely 0800 hours. Sarah watched from her office window as 4 officers in dress uniforms emerged, led by Captain Morrison, whose reputation for rigid adherence to protocol had preceded him throughout the special operations community. Marcus had arrived 2 hours early to ensure all documentation was properly organized and that his workspace reflected military standards that would satisfy even the most demanding inspection. His usually relaxed demeanor was replaced by the formal bearing of someone who understood that his career and the command's future hung in the balance. Lieutenant Chen, Petty Officer Rodriguez, Commander Jackson called from his doorway, "Please join me in the conference room to meet the review team." The conference room had been prepared with military precision. Charts displaying organizational structures covered the walls, and thick binders of operational procedures were arranged at each seat. The atmosphere felt more like a court-martial than a routine administrative review. Captain Morrison stood at the head of the table, flanked by a Navy commander, an Army lieutenant colonel, and a civilian analyst from the Pentagon's Efficiency Review Office. Their combined presence represented the full weight of higher command's authority and bureaucratic power. "Commander Jackson," Captain Morrison began, "thank you for your cooperation with this review. Our purpose here is to examine operational efficiency and ensure that command structures align with Navy regulations and best practices." Sarah noticed the formal language that established an adversarial tone rather than collaborative assessment. This wasn't a review seeking to understand NSWC's effectiveness, this was an investigation looking for violations of prescribed procedures. "I'd like to begin by understanding the role of your operations specialist," Morrison continued, consulting notes that suggested extensive preparation. "Petty Officer Rodriguez, I understand you coordinate operational activities across multiple SEAL teams. Explain your duties and authority." Marcus stood at attention, his voice steady despite the obvious trap being laid. "Sir, I serve as operations coordinator for NSWC, facilitating communication between SEAL teams and higher command while providing logistical and administrative support for mission planning and execution." "Facilitating communication," Morrison repeated, his tone suggesting skepticism. "Our preliminary review suggests you make tactical recommendations and coordinate operational assets. Those responsibilities typically fall under commissioned officer authority." Sarah recognized the attack's direction. Morrison was systematically building a case that Marcus exceeded appropriate enlisted responsibilities by influencing decisions that should be made by commissioned officers. "Sir," Marcus replied carefully, "I provide information and analysis to support decision-making by qualified officers. My role is advisory, with all final decisions made by appropriate command authority." The civilian analyst consulted his tablet and spoke up. "Our documentation review shows instances where you coordinated extraction operations, authorized equipment procurement, and communicated directly with international military partners. These activities suggest decision-making authority beyond typical enlisted responsibilities." Commander Jackson intervened before Marcus could respond. "Petty Officer Rodriguez operates under my direct supervision and authority. His coordination activities are conducted with my approval and oversight. Yet our review shows numerous instances where he acted independently during time-critical situations," Morrison replied. "Who provided oversight during the Team 6 extraction operation last week when you were in meetings with Theater Command?" Sarah realized that Morrison had done extensive homework, identifying specific situations where Marcus had necessarily acted without immediate officer supervision due to operational demands. The review team was building a systematic case against informal authority structures that had proven essential for effective operations. The morning session continued with detailed questioning about specific procedures, decision-making processes, and command relationships. Each question seemed designed to highlight instances where NSWC's practical operations deviated from rigid bureaucratic expectations. During the lunch break, Sarah and Marcus found themselves alone in their office, both feeling the pressure of an investigation that seemed predetermined to find fault with current practices. "They're not looking for effectiveness," Marcus observed. "They're looking for regulation compliance, regardless of operational results." Sarah agreed but felt helpless to change the trajectory of the review. "Captain Morrison has clearly decided that your role represents inappropriate authority delegation. He's building a case to recommend structural changes." The afternoon brought interviews with SEAL team leaders, where Sarah hoped the review team would hear direct testimony about Marcus's value and effectiveness. Chief Morrison, Team Leader Davis, and several other senior enlisted personnel would have opportunities to explain how current coordination procedures actually worked. Chief Morrison, Captain Morrison began the first team leader interview. "Describe your working relationship with Petty Officer Rodriguez." "Sir, Rodriguez is an outstanding coordinator who understands our operational requirements and capabilities. His support has been essential for mission success across multiple deployments." "Does he make decisions that affect your operations?" "He provides recommendations based on his knowledge of our capabilities and current situations. His advice is consistently sound and helps us avoid problems before they develop." Sarah watched the review team's reaction and noticed the civilian analyst taking detailed notes about decision-making processes that might violate bureaucratic expectations of clear hierarchical authority. "Has Petty Officer Rodriguez ever contradicted or overruled recommendations from commissioned officers?" the Army Lieutenant Colonel asked. Chief Morrison paused, recognizing the trap in the question. "Sir, Rodriguez provides analysis based on operational knowledge. Sometimes his assessment differs from initial recommendations, but final decisions are always made by appropriate command authority." The questioning continued for several hours, with each SEAL team representative providing similar testimony about Marcus's value while inadvertently documenting instances where his expertise had influenced operational decisions. Team Leader Davis was particularly direct in his support. "Sir, Rodriguez understands SEAL capabilities better than most officers I've worked with. His coordination has prevented mission failures and saved lives. Any changes to his role would significantly reduce our operational effectiveness." "Your confidence in an enlisted man's judgment over commissioned officers is noted," Morrison replied coldly. "Are you suggesting that enlisted personnel are better qualified to make operational decisions than trained officers?" Davis recognized the political minefield he had entered but remained committed to defending Marcus's value. "Sir, I'm suggesting that 8 years of special operations experience has given Rodriguez knowledge that makes him extremely valuable for operational coordination." The review team's questions consistently focused on hierarchy and authority rather than effectiveness and results. Sarah realized they were witnessing a fundamental clash between bureaucratic expectations and operational reality. Tuesday brought examination of specific operations that Marcus had coordinated, with detailed analysis of decision-making processes and authority structures during crisis situations. The recent Team 4 extraction operation received particular scrutiny, as it provided extensive documentation of Marcus's central role in managing complex coordination requirements. This operation shows Petty Officer Rodriguez making tactical recommendations directly to senior officers, Morrison noted while reviewing communication logs. He coordinated extraction assets, authorized equipment changes, and communicated with multiple support elements. These activities represent command authority inappropriate for enlisted personnel. Commander Jackson defended the operations procedures. "Sir, Petty Officer Rodriguez operated under my direct authority and oversight. His recommendations were based on superior knowledge of tactical situations and available assets. Yet the communication logs show him making independent decisions during critical phases when immediate officer consultation wasn't practical," the civilian analyst observed. This suggests a command structure that places inappropriate authority in enlisted positions. Sarah found herself increasingly frustrated by the review team's narrow focus on procedural compliance rather than operational effectiveness. The Team 4 extraction had been successful precisely because Marcus's expertise and authority had enabled rapid decision-making during crisis situations. Wednesday brought the most challenging session when Captain Morrison directly confronted the informal authority structures that made NSWC so effective. He had identified multiple instances where Marcus's influence exceeded traditional enlisted responsibilities and, was prepared to recommend systematic changes. Commander Jackson, Morrison began, our review has documented extensive instances where enlisted personnel exercise decision-making authority typically reserved for commissioned officers. This represents a fundamental violation of established Navy command structures. Sir, Jackson replied, our command structure has produced superior operational results across 8 years of complex deployments. The procedures you're questioning have proven essential for mission success. Mission success achieved through inappropriate command structures still represents a violation of Navy regulations. We cannot accept operational effectiveness as justification for procedural non-compliance. Sarah realized the review had reached its critical moment. Morrison was essentially arguing that regulatory compliance was more important than proven effectiveness, a position that could destroy NSWC's operational capabilities. Captain Morrison, Sarah interjected, recognizing she was taking a career risk, may I provide perspective as a liaison officer who has observed both our operational procedures and higher command requirements? Morrison looked annoyed at the interruption but nodded for her to proceed. Sir, during my time here I've observed Petty Officer Rodriguez coordinate operations that saved lives and achieved critical mission objectives. His expertise and judgment have proven consistently superior, and removing his authority would significantly reduce our operational effectiveness. Any assessment of command structure should consider operational results as primary evidence of procedural appropriateness. Lieutenant Chen, Morrison replied with obvious displeasure, you're suggesting that operational results justify procedural violations. That position is unacceptable from a commissioned officer. Sarah recognized she had crossed a line that could damage her career, but she felt compelled to defend the system that had proven so effective. Sir, I'm suggesting that command structures should support mission effectiveness rather than bureaucratic convenience. The room fell silent as Morrison considered his response. Sarah had directly challenged the review's fundamental premise, risking her career to defend Marcus's authority and NSWC's operational procedures. Thursday brought individual interviews where review team members could question personnel without group dynamics influencing responses. Sarah's interview with Captain Morrison was particularly intense, as he sought to understand why a promising young officer would defend inappropriate command structures. Lieutenant Chen, your academy record suggests strong potential for advancement, yet you're defending procedural violations that could damage your career. Explain your reasoning. Sir, my reasoning is based on observed effectiveness. The current command structure produces superior results, and any changes should be designed to maintain or improve that effectiveness. You're prioritizing operational convenience over regulatory compliance. I'm prioritizing mission success over bureaucratic preference. Morrison's expression showed his displeasure with Sarah's continued resistance to his conclusions. Your position suggests poor judgment regarding appropriate military hierarchy and order. My position reflects judgment based on observed performance and proven results. Marcus's individual interview was equally challenging, with Morrison attempting to get him to acknowledge inappropriate exercise of authority or accept that his role exceeded enlisted responsibilities. Petty Officer Rodriguez, do you believe your current duties are appropriate for your rank and position? Sir, I believe my duties serve the mission effectively and operate within command authority as delegated by qualified officers. Yet you make decisions that affect SEAL team operations and coordinate assets across multiple commands. Those responsibilities typically require commissioned officer authority. Sir, I provide analysis and coordination support to officers who make final decisions. My role is advisory and administrative. Your advisory role appears to determine operational outcomes in many situations we've reviewed. Marcus maintained his professional demeanor despite the obvious attempts to trap him into admitting inappropriate authority. Sir, my experience allows me to provide valuable input to decision-making processes managed by qualified officers. Friday brought the review team's preliminary conclusions, which would determine Marcus's future and NSWC's operational structure. Captain Morrison had prepared a comprehensive presentation that would recommend significant changes to current procedures. Commander Jackson, Morrison announced, our review has identified multiple areas where current command structures violate established Navy hierarchy and authority regulations. We will recommend implementing changes to ensure appropriate alignment between rank, position, and authority. Sarah felt her heart sink as she realized the review would indeed recommend eliminating Marcus's informal authority and restructuring NSWC operations around rigid hierarchical requirements. Specifically, Morrison continued, we recommend that operational coordination responsibilities be transferred to commissioned officers, that enlisted personnel be restricted to purely administrative support roles, and that all tactical decisions be made exclusively by officers with appropriate rank and authority. The recommendations would effectively eliminate Marcus's role as operational coordinator and remove the informal expertise networks that had made NSWC so effective. 8 years of proven excellence would be discarded in favor of bureaucratic compliance. Commander Jackson listened to the recommendations with obvious concern but limited ability to resist higher command authority. Sir, implementing these changes will significantly reduce our operational effectiveness and eliminate institutional knowledge that has proven essential for mission success. Operational effectiveness achieved through inappropriate command structures is unacceptable, Morrison replied firmly. Navy regulations exist to ensure proper authority and accountability, regardless of short-term operational convenience. As the review team prepared to depart, Sarah realized that everything Marcus had built during his 8 years at NSWC faced elimination by officials who valued conformity over competence. The final report would go to Admiral Harrison, who would decide whether to accept Morrison's recommendations or defend current practices. The weekend brought a somber atmosphere as NSWC personnel contemplated the potential changes that could fundamentally alter their operational capabilities. Marcus faced the possibility that his expertise and authority would be eliminated, while Sarah confronted the reality that defending him might have damaged her own career prospects. Sunday evening brought news that would change everything and provide the ultimate test of whether competence or conformity would prevail in the bureaucratic battle that had consumed the past week. Sunday evening brought an emergency that would determine whether Admiral Harrison valued regulatory compliance or operational excellence. A terrorist cell had taken American diplomats hostage in a remote embassy compound, and the president had ordered an immediate rescue operation. Every SEAL team capable of rapid deployment was needed, and coordination requirements would test NSWC's capabilities under maximum pressure. Sarah received the emergency notification at 2100 hours and immediately contacted Marcus, who was already coordinating with multiple agencies despite the late hour. The situation required everything he had learned during 8 years of special operations experience, and there would be no time for bureaucratic procedures or rigid hierarchy. Lieutenant, we're looking at the most complex coordination challenge we've ever faced, Marcus explained as they rushed to NSWC headquarters. 3 SEAL teams deploying to different approach routes, international airspace negotiations, real-time intelligence coordination, and presidential oversight. We have 6 hours to coordinate assets from multiple commands and international partners. Admiral Harrison himself was flying in to oversee the operation, bringing his full staff including Captain Morrison. The timing was ironically perfect. Harrison would see firsthand whether NSWC's current procedures could handle maximum stress operations, or whether Morrison's recommended changes would improve effectiveness. Commander Jackson was already coordinating with Pentagon officials when Sarah and Marcus arrived. The operations center buzzed with intense activity as personnel worked to establish communication links, coordinate transportation assets, and develop tactical approaches for 3 simultaneous rescue operations. Rodriguez, Jackson called, I need you to coordinate the international aspects while I manage Pentagon communications. We have British, French, and Australian assets that could provide support, but you're the only one with established relationships for rapid coordination. Marcus immediately began working multiple communication channels, contacting international partners he had worked with during previous operations. His established credibility allowed him to quickly arrange support that would have taken hours for other coordinators to negotiate. Control, this is Rodriguez at NSWC, Marcus spoke into a secure communication system. Priority 1 coordination request for Operation Lighthouse. Requesting immediate consultation on airspace and support assets. Sarah watched him efficiently manage conversations in 3 languages while coordinating with intelligence analysts who were providing real-time updates on hostage locations and enemy positions. His ability to simultaneously manage multiple complex requirements was exactly what the current crisis demanded. Admiral Harrison arrived at midnight with his full staff, including Captain Morrison, who looked uncomfortable observing the very procedures he had spent a week criticizing being used during a presidential priority operation. The Admiral immediately took command of the operation while maintaining the existing coordination structure that had been established. Commander Jackson, Admiral Harrison announced, brief me on current status and coordination requirements. Sir, we have 3 SEAL teams preparing for coordinated deployment to multiple approach routes. International partners are providing airspace clearance and backup support. Intelligence assets are providing real-time surveillance and target analysis. All coordination is being managed through our established procedures. Timeline for deployment readiness? 4 hours, sir. Final coordination depends on completing negotiations with international partners and confirming intelligence assessments. Admiral Harrison noticed Marcus managing multiple communication channels and asked Jackson, who's handling international coordination. Petty Officer Rodriguez, sir. He has established relationships with our international partners and can coordinate more rapidly than going through formal diplomatic channels. Morrison stepped forward, clearly uncomfortable with Marcus's central role during such a high-visibility operation. Sir, during our review we identified concerns about enlisted personnel having operational authority beyond appropriate levels. Admiral Harrison looked between Morrison and the ongoing coordination activities. Captain Morrison, what are your concerns about current procedures? Sir, Petty Officer Rodriguez is making decisions and commitments that typically require commissioned officer authority. This represents inappropriate delegation of command responsibility. Harrison observed Marcus coordinating with British Special Forces while simultaneously updating intelligence assessments and communicating with SEAL team leaders. What specific problems do you see with his coordination? Sir, he's making tactical recommendations and committing assets without immediate officer oversight. These activities exceed appropriate enlisted responsibilities. Admiral Harrison walked over to Marcus's coordination station and listened to his conversations with international partners. The complexity of the coordination and the expertise required were immediately apparent to someone with Harrison's operational experience. Petty Officer Rodriguez, Harrison interrupted one of Marcus's conversations. Brief me on international coordination status. Marcus immediately provided a comprehensive update on airspace clearances, support assets, communication protocols, and backup options that had been arranged with 4 different international partners. His briefing was precise, complete, and demonstrated detailed understanding of complex operational requirements. How long would it take someone else to establish these coordination relationships? Harrison asked. Sir, the relationships I'm using were built over 6 years of joint operations. Establishing similar coordination from scratch would require several days minimum, assuming the partners were willing to work with unknown personnel. Harrison turned to Morrison. Captain, are you suggesting we delay this operation while someone else attempts to establish international coordination? Morrison found himself in an impossible position. Criticizing Marcus's coordination during a presidential priority operation would appear to prioritize bureaucratic compliance over mission success. Sir, I'm concerned about establishing precedents that violate proper command authority. I'm concerned about successfully rescuing American hostages, Harrison replied firmly. Continue coordination, Petty Officer Rodriguez. The next several hours tested everyone's capabilities as the rescue operation developed into one of the most complex coordination challenges in NSWC history. Marcus managed international support while Sarah worked with Pentagon liaisons to ensure senior leadership remained informed about operational developments. Team coordination required constant adjustments as intelligence updates revealed changes in hostage locations and enemy positions. Marcus's ability to rapidly modify support arrangements and update international partners proved essential for maintaining operational flexibility. NSWC Control, this is Team Alpha. We're observing additional security at the compound entrance. Request modification of approach route and updated intelligence assessment. Marcus immediately coordinated with intelligence analysts while updating British partners who were providing surveillance support from their position. His response was rapid and comprehensive, providing Team Alpha with alternative approach options within minutes. Admiral Harrison observed these coordination activities with growing appreciation for the expertise required to manage such complex operations. The informal authority structures that Morrison had criticized were proving essential for effective crisis management. British Control, this is Rodriguez. Team Alpha needs alternate approach route to avoid compromised entry point. Can you confirm surveillance of southern approach and advise on enemy positions? The British response was immediate and complete, reflecting the trust and established cooperation that Marcus had built over years of joint operations. Similar coordination with French and Australian assets provided comprehensive support that would have been impossible without his established relationships. Admiral, Commander Jackson reported, all teams report ready for coordinated deployment. International partners confirm support assets in position. Intelligence assessment shows optimal window for operation beginning in 30 minutes. Harrison nodded approval while Morrison watched the successful coordination with obvious discomfort. The very procedures he had criticized were proving indispensable for mission success during maximum pressure circumstances. The rescue operation itself unfolded with precision that demonstrated the value of Marcus's coordination expertise. Each team received necessary support exactly when required, international partners provided seamless assistance, and communication flows maintained perfect coordination throughout the operation. NSWC Control, Team Alpha. All hostages secured, compound clear, ready for extraction. NSWC Control, Team Bravo. Secondary objectives complete, enemy neutralized, extraction in progress. NSWC Control, Team Charlie. Perimeter secure, support assets coordinated, mission complete. Marcus managed extraction coordination with the same expertise he had demonstrated throughout the operation, ensuring all teams and supporting assets withdrew safely while maintaining communication with international partners who had provided crucial assistance. Admiral Harrison received the mission completion report with obvious satisfaction. Outstanding coordination, Commander Jackson. Textbook operation. Thank you, sir. Credit goes to our entire coordination team, particularly Petty Officer Rodriguez's international coordination. Harrison turned to Morrison, who had observed the entire operation without finding any procedural failures or coordination problems. Captain Morrison, assessment of coordination procedures during this operation? Morrison found himself forced to acknowledge what everyone had witnessed. Sir, the coordination was effective and achieved mission success. Any recommendations for improvements to current procedures? Morrison realized that criticizing the procedures that had just succeeded during a presidential priority operation would be career suicide. Sir, the current procedures appear adequate for operational requirements. Admiral Harrison then addressed the group with a statement that would determine NSWC's future. Commander Jackson, I've reviewed Captain Morrison's assessment of your command structure. While some concerns about formal procedures have merit, this operation demonstrates that your current coordination capabilities are essential for mission success. Sarah felt relief wash over her as she realized Harrison was rejecting Morrison's recommendations for fundamental changes to NSWC operations. Petty Officer Rodriguez, Harrison continued, addressing Marcus directly, your coordination expertise represents exactly the kind of institutional knowledge that makes special operations effective. Any changes to command structure must preserve and enhance your capabilities rather than limiting them. Marcus maintained his professional composure despite the obvious vindication of his 8 years of dedicated service. Thank you, sir. I'm honored to serve the mission. Captain Morrison, Harrison said, turning to the review team leader, revise your recommendations to focus on documentation and oversight procedures that preserve current operational effectiveness. We need better administrative structure, not different coordination capabilities. Morrison accepted the directive with professional grace despite his obvious disappointment. Yes, sir. I'll prepare revised recommendations that maintain operational capabilities while improving administrative compliance. The crisis had provided the ultimate test of competing approaches to military effectiveness. Operational competence had proven more valuable than bureaucratic compliance, and proven expertise had demonstrated greater worth than rigid hierarchy. As dawn broke over NSWC headquarters, Sarah and Marcus complete.